They have not.
Hey,
It's
just so
ridiculous.
you know, it looks like your shirt says ho.
Well, listen, if I had a nickel, we wouldn't need to monetize this podcast now, would we? Would we? Big busted girls should not wear lettered shirts. That's what we're learning today. So I'm staying home.
That says ho on them.
Ho, present! Hello, and welcome to the 15th episode of Little Did I Know. I am your host, Stephanie Parks.
And I'm your other host, Shauna Zolman Mahaley. Little Did I Know is a place where two friends share our journeys through life, the good and the bad, while never losing our laughter.
If you want to hear more episodes, you can find us at stephandshauna.com or Little Did I Know on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, fans, here we go. This is the fan favorite. I've heard it. I love it. I love getting messages. I know so many of you have Googled Rogue, the sexy koala. I heard that. I know. I mean, it has you just never know what you're going to get from here. Okay. So today's fun fact is just goofy. I have two. Okay.
Okay.
So fun fact is in 2005, a 22-year-old man by the name of Ronald McDonald robbed a Wendy's fast food restaurant, stealing the money in the store's safe where he worked at the time. So when they had to call the
Ronald McDonald robbed Wendy's.
We've been robbed by Ronald McDonald. Oh,
those clowns.
People are so ridiculous. Bananas. So there's one for you.
I loved it. You
Now
really
this
set the bar low when you said what you said. Like, that was a good one.
Well, I mean, we just had Rogue, so you know.
Yeah.
And we had the croissants for the corsages and, so, I mean, it's just a different day. That's what it is. Okay. So here is an interesting fun fact. And I am a part of this. And so whatever. The gym chain Planet Fitness,
Okay.
which charges between $10 and $20 per month, has on average, each gym, has on average 6,500 members per gym. The gyms can only hold a maximum capacity of 300 people. Planet Fitness can do this because they know members won't show up.
That's a beautiful tagline.
How terrible.
We can have as many people as we want. Only 1/16 of them are going to come.
I know. Oh, but we're going to still keep taking their money. I am like, what in the world?
Listen, that's good business.
I mean,
you can't help it that people are wasting their money.
I'm going to show up tomorrow. I've been doing my outside workouts, but I'm going to show up tomorrow, I think because it's going to rain, but also because I'm going to prove those jokers wrong. I'm going to be like, hey, you take my money, but I am still here, fools. I know.
Oh, that's so good. It is different in the summertime, though, too. I mean, when you have nice weather outside, that's probably when they really make bank. Well, then again, I don't live in Kansas City where it's hellaciously hot.
I just said that today. So I got in my 10,000 steps, this morning. It was beautiful. It was cool. I actually had to wear my sweatshirt the entire time. Now, when I got home, I was sweating like a monster. So I didn't like that. But I was like, these mornings are like, we'll have some now, but we won't have them again until like a long time from now because the humidity is a killer. Killer. Yeah. Barf. So anyways, I'll be back at Planet Fitness giving my money there. Okay.
That's my favorite. So this week we are going to do the last segment of our What the Hell Is It? Episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So on this one, it's going to be a little bit tricky. And it really isn't fun to talk about. But alas we are. And it's a vital part of the healing process. You just did an invisible news hang.
I sure did.
We're gonna make it fun though. If anyone can make the conversation about grief fun, you pick the You girls that are right about it.
You got that right.
Woo. But
Okay.
grief is a natural progression of emotions that you experience after a loss, big or small. Grief doesn't ask permission, and from my experience, it's stronger than a tsunami in its magnitude. Like the words of our great, close, and ever so beloved friend, Miley Cyrus,
Yeah.
it comes in like a daggum wrecking ball.
It sure does. Oh, man. Okay. So what the hell is it? Grief. Here we go. Okay. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And we've all seen how it's, projected on a cycle, and then you get through denial, you go to anger, then you go to bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So, and this can be grieving for anything. It doesn't have to, you grieve losses wherever you are, right? So again, we're going to stay within our lane that we are talking through of divorce, the trauma of that and how that has. But then what we know is when we're doing the hard work of emotional, mental healing, God is very tender to us to not just let it be over one thing, right? Like he's like, so why we're here and why we've got your heart open, let's really work on some other things.
Yeah, and I want to add into that too, that, the trigger was divorce.
Yeah.
Like the key word there is the trigger was divorce.
Yeah.
But the emotions and the things that need to be healed, honestly, probably doesn't have a whole lot to do. The initial stage of grief had to do with that. But everything else that's manifested from that doesn't have a whole lot to do with that. So again, like if your story is not divorce, like don't fret, because those emotions and everything that coincides with this grief cycle, it's the same for everyone. This cycle is the same for everyone. The emotions are the same. The circumstances just may be different. So
I remember saying early on when we were still in the middle of possibly reconciling, like we were meeting with a mediator and we had some parameters of putting things in. And I said, again, there are times, I don't know if you're like this at all, but there are times when like God literally speaks out of my mouth, something that I wasn't even thinking. And I said, I need you to know that this part of, like, I'm going to call it like this deconstructing that I was going through of seeing things for how they really were in the first, you know what I mean? Like not living through these rose colored glasses and not just putting on a smile, when I really was at this part of like, I have to figure this out to save my life, my physical life, my spiritual life, my emotional life. Like I couldn't go any farther. And so all of this was happening in my life. A lot of loss was happening. And I said, right now, because of the way that my ex-husband lost his cool when I started speaking my truth and started not allowing things to happen anymore, my marriage became the focus. But really, it was everything. But so like you said, that was the trigger of it. And I remember saying, I have to take care of this part right now. I don't know where this is going to go. I do not know. But what I do know is this is one entity of the things that God is really drawing out for me to find my fullness, wholeness in Him and also in myself.
Yeah. Yep.
So agree with that. And I will tell you, 5 years, 6 years in, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but so much revelation came through. I'm still in it. Right? So, okay. So one of the things that I just want to start, and this comes from counseling and also, again, just having to walk in it, walk through it, all of that, is give yourself space to grieve. Right?
Yeah. And oftentimes it's so freeing to hear somebody say that. It's not this amazing extremely wise piece of advice that you're like, oh my gosh, how'd you think of that? It's just a small
Right.
little epiphany that if somebody just speaks that truth over you, you're like, okay. Kind of like you can breathe. Kind of like let it out and be like, okay, I it's okay for me to take a step back, to give myself space to grieve. That is okay to do.
And I think as women, we are trying to be strong, independent women. We're trying to run businesses, run families, do this. And so we have this mentality of like, can't stop, won't stop, and so just keep on going and going. And actually, you are doing yourself a huge disservice if you've experienced any kind of loss. And here's the other thing that I want to say. So in the divorce setting or a breakup setting or something like that, even just because it was a choice and you made that choice, it still doesn't hurt any less. Like you still have to grieve it, even though if you were the one who said, this isn't working for me, I'm out, whatever that is, it's still a loss. You still have to process that loss.
And I've been told too that even the loss of divorce is greater than loss of death.
Yeah.
Because they're still out there. Because it's an ongoing living situation, and it's the what ifs are constantly coming in your
Absolutely,
mind, right?
Yeah.
And not to compare hurts, not to compare circumstances, because that's not what I'm trying to do with that statement.
Right.
Just as something to say, like, it's a continual thing that's out there.
Yeah.
There's no cutoff, really.
Yeah. So when we say give yourself space to grieve, so Shauna, how did you navigate that? What did that look like for you?
Well, I stayed angry for a long time. Like I've really had to navigate through owning that as an identity piece for me, that I'm just an angry person. And my brother and I say that a lot. So I'm like, is it genetic? Is it within our family genes? But
your brother says he's angry too?
Yeah. We both just say like, I'm just 90% of the time I'm just an angry person. The other 10 I can mask it with laughter, but
okay.
That's not, I'm saying that in transparency, but that's not what's really true. So like I can take that on as being like, yeah, I'm just an angry person. I'm just so angry. And that's not true. I'm still dealing with a lot of grief.
Yeah.
So it's not an identity statement. It's just the stage at which I'm in. And so even hearing that for myself was huge, was freeing, because I started to then, because people who know me, I'm a lighthearted, happy-go-lucky, positive, like that's just not me. But inside, that's how I feel, aka the Hulk that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So for me, like you said, the loss, there's losses in different dynamics and different capacities depending on what your experience and circumstances are. But the loss of like whether you chose to walk away, whether you chose the life that has then caused you to have to heal from grief, like there's still loss in that. Like there's loss of what you dreamed your life would look like.
Absolutely.
Right? There's loss of what you dreamed your marriage would look like. There's loss of ideals, quote unquote, like what you had anticipated. Ideally, this is what Shauna's life is supposed to like. There's just loss in that. And
yeah, sure.
There's a reality of that. So going back to the stages, though, like I really, obviously, anger was kind of where I've set up camp on. But for me, stages aren't something that you check off the list like a 5-step process.
Right.
These are things that denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance are the stages that you're going to experience. It doesn't mean that once you're done with number 1 denial, that then you're going to go to number 2 anger. Like you can go from denial to acceptance, back to denial, to depression, back to anger, back to bargaining, back to anger. But like just because you experience one doesn't mean that you're then done with it when you think that you've overcome it.
Sure.
Like, it's a constant process and cycle from hell sometimes, it seems like. So I just want to make sure like that is communicated, because for me, I may have touched some of the stages, but I didn't set up camp there. So denial for me, that was obviously at the very beginning, because like I didn't tell anybody about everything that was going on in my life, my marriage, for a full year. Like, not even my parents. I think I mentioned that. So like, I was in complete denial of my own reality because I didn't want other people to buy into that and see me as that person. But again, anger is where that was just me. Like, and anger to me looks like a very physical force of anger. So to me, in order to get rid of that, like I just did crazy workouts. I hit punching bags over and over again. I ran until like I literally couldn't run anymore, or like that I was vomiting after. Like, there's just things that I had to get a release physically somehow in my anger stage. So those are probably examples though of healthy releases, right? And then I also moved into the unhealthy stages of anger. So the numbing out, the numbing out with whatever you want to fill in the blank with, in this world, whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's people, like whatever that numbing agent is, like there's also that unhealthy element too. And then I also cut my hair off, just like you did, whereas I'm not portraying that onto you. But to me, I'm just like, I had this F the world mentality. I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't care what people thought of me anymore. So I'm just like, I want to start over new. I want to cut my hair off. Yeah. And that's kind of how that started for me. But that's where I really kept going back to, is the anger phase. Yeah. Bargaining, I don't really know what that looked like for me. Depression was something that I experienced from time to time, especially at the beginning. And this is something that's like, when people are depressed, I'm not saying that the chemical imbalance isn't real. When you also go into depression, you can also say, yeah, you're just in a grieving cycle, and it's okay to sit in that. And don't hurry up and get out of it, but let's not, like you say, put up wallpaper in the pit.
Right, right.
And then finally, acceptance. I think acceptance is the key one for me, because when you accept like your reality, when you accept what's going on, that becomes self-awareness. So an awareness that, like, okay, I need help. I need to bring people in. I need to seek counseling. I need to seek mentorship. I need to help myself internally and externally would be key. So that's in a long way of saying that's what it looked like for me to grieve. Yeah. Yeah.
Funny how we have some similarities. I'm just going to leave it there because, some we don't.
The anger thing probably isn't too big.
My anger looked a little different, but, so one thing is that you hit on, and I wanted to talk about too, was denial for me was in my marriage, my first marriage. And that I think I don't want to say popular, but I think that is common, is we do have this denial part of it, as our everything around us is shifting and changing, but we still stay in, I can do this, we can get there, it's not that bad, all of those kind of things. And so denial for me started in my first marriage, for sure. And then I was going through counseling, and it was so good for me. And I was also transitioning. So there was times where I was like, I know that I need this, but also I ramped up into, how am I going to now manage my life? So it was kind of, those two things. And so I stayed in anger too. And for a really long time, that was my emotion. Was I didn't cry in front of my kids. I wasn't sad. I was just 100% mad. And mad was way easier for me. Mad still let me get up in the morning, go to school, go to work, do my life, because I couldn't do that sad. I couldn't do that curled up on the couch, And so like fight or flight, this came as like, you know what? I mean, I'm just gonna fight my way out of this, angry as can be. And that's really not who I am, because fight or flight, I am the fainter. I am like, oh my gosh, I don't have that. Like, that's not my natural response. And so I knew that wasn't the best part of me, but that allowed me, because what I did then was how I said earlier about like this can't stop, won't stop. I just worked. I worked because in my mind was you won't fail if you keep working. You will keep putting food on the table. You will keep paying your rent. You will keep, and then you will continue. Like, then I went into like hyper focus of like, I mean, being 40 and starting your life brand new is crazy scary, you know, and divorced, and you have no safety nets. You don't have anything. So then I became, how can I grow in my career? How can I find success in my career? And this very next step that I'm going to take, like, I'm just going to continue to build into the successful career, because then, you know, I'm going to give everybody a, you know what, the finger. So, what has tripped me up is the depression part, where I would say that in that stay in anger, I became a high functioning depressed person because I wasn't allowing anything to really get past this hardness of my heart that I was it had just been cordoned off, you know, where I was like, nobody's getting in, everybody's out. Like, it just is what it is. And I did some, really a lot of harm internally to myself in that season too, where I was just like, nothing's going to hurt me, so it doesn't matter, you know? To where, looking back and now going back through counseling and digging out some things, I did not let myself feel those emotions like I should have. Yeah. And so I think that has, again, rose up to the place of like, let's really look at that. Let's really examine that and dig into that. And that's part of this sabbatical that I have. And so that's probably how I grieved. And one of the things that I want to say too is, it took a whole lot longer than I wanted it to.
Oh my gosh, that'll preach.
Like,
it really is taking longer. It
still is. Yeah, exactly. Where I just was like, I would say over and over, I need this to stop hurting. I need this to stop affecting me. I need this to stop, like, just, and at the beginning, so I had somebody say, like, your recovery time is actually, you've done better with it. So it's not like this long thing where, like, there would be something that would happen and I would be like, you know, and I would just tank for like days. And so now, you know, as I'm dealing with things and as I say a lot, like, things hurt my feelings, that's just a sweet way of saying, man, it has just come as the wrecking ball, you know, like our friend sung about. But I'm doing better in that. Like, even today, I just had a thing happen yesterday, where I was like, oh no. And as I'm walking today, 'cause that really has been my therapy, is, I felt God say, you know what you're going to do? You're going to forgive. And I was like, oh man, okay. Because I really don't want to carry this with me anymore. Yeah. But if he would have said forgive even 6 months ago, I would have been like, how about instead of that, let's do the Old Testament way and let's just kill people. You know? Like, all this New Testament grace, like, that's super great. But you know what I want to do? I just want to do an Old Testament ass kicking. Let's
just open up the earth, swallow 75,000 and shut it.
For sure. I mean, but again, you know,
well, it sounds like you're in the process of growing, which is kind of the next question. So it's like, what is, because number 2 is literally give yourself space to grow. Yeah. And just as important as it is to grieve, it's just as, if not more important, to give yourself space to grow in that. So as you're talking, you're kind of alluding to, this is how you are growing, but can you expound on that a little bit of what that looks like for you to grow?
Yeah. And this caught me really off guard. And again, I just want to say, like, we are not experts. We are not licensed life coaches. It sounds like we are. I know. And so
it could come to everyone as a surprise.
It could. I mean, that could be in our next 6 months. We might have certifications. I don't know.
We can create our own certification.
Oh my gosh. If you can marry somebody from doing an online course online.
Surely. Surely that's the case.
I will get us business cards if that happens.
Okay.
They will be so
I'll
cute.
print out our certifications.
Okay. But this is, so as I was going over content of this grief, the last couple months of my life have been so just dark again. And I couldn't figure it out. And like I said, cut my hair, went to counseling. I've been on sabbatical from work. I've read the books, I've prayed, I've done all of this. And I just cannot, like, there's just this, it's not the whole of me, because like I've said, like, I don't know how to juggle this hard part of my life when I have so many great and amazing things going on in my life too. Like, it's just been this juxtaposition that I can't figure it out. And so when I was going over our content, I felt like some things that came up about like this depression and acceptance and bargaining and all of this. I'm like, why is that still feel very active in my life? And I can say I grieved my first marriage. Like, it is done. It is buried. It is done. It's finished. But this part of this grieving is I'm grieving me. I'm grieving finally in this place of stepping back from so many things and allowing space and quiet to fill places that I had just kept so busy, allowed light to shine into those places. And so I just felt like God kind of just walked me through this place of I am still grieving a little girl, the me, who asked really important questions because of what I felt and knew to be true, and I was lied to. And so I had a false reality painted for me that I knew internally was not right, and I questioned it. And so that little girl who asked the question and was lied to was silenced, not to ask those questions anymore. And so, like, that's the little girl who I'm grieving for now. And then a teenager who I was sexually abused, and it continued all the way through my marriage. Same person. I'm grieving that girl who was silenced under the guise of submission.
Ugh.
Yeah. And so that is this place where, let me tell you, that had been pushed way, way down.
Sure. Because it had to be.
And for sure. I mean, talk about like going into survival mode. Mm-hmm. And so in finding my voice and finding this place is also having to find where the deep wounds are as well. And so, let me tell you, it has shifted this perspective of this dark place where I have felt so questioning, and I couldn't understand it, and I didn't know what it was. But now that I can identify it and go, oh gosh, I'm grieving me. And so to get to this place to go, okay, so here I am, 45. I'm at a huge crossroads of my life of what do I want my professional life to look like? How can I reconstruct a family when I grieved that my family will not ever look traditional ever again? How that mom that I felt like I missed out on because I used my voice to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this anymore. And it stopped some mom things that I really am sad about. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that I've been mourning it. I've been grieving it, and I didn't have the words for it until just last week, really. Yeah. Which honestly, it's a beautiful thing too, because it was Easter weekend, and it was that really going through, you know, the crucifixion, the death, and the resurrection, and really allowing that to look like that's what my life looks like because of what it was for Jesus. So anyways, still in it, but
there's a thought that comes to mind as you've been talking, because we kind of joke, but I know everybody feels it, that you're just like, oh, grief. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to heal. Oh, I got to go through the motion, which is true. Nobody wants to, because it's hard.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, the person who you really are and that has been created to be doesn't exist when we're bound by fear, grief, hurt, pain. We've just become numb to the imposter that we currently live with.
Absolutely.
And so in order to break free from that bondage and that imposter that's really not who we are, myself included, requires the work to grieve, and requires the work to break free from the things that have been masking the real person who you are. So in order to become who you really are, for you, for your loved ones, for your friends that are surround you, it's not just about putting on the mask and trying to white knuckle your way through life and just say, I don't want to talk about it. Like you said, I'm going to stuff this down so far because I have to survive, which is a good thing. It's a natural thing to do when you've been hurt so bad, is to, like, that's the way that our bodies are created. It's to literally survive. You're going to have to do what you want, do what you need. But when, as God is so good in bringing these things up over time, over and over again, because he's like, I want you to really be the person I've created you to be. And you can't be that person bound in this, that, or the other, right? Yeah. So it's literally just this coming to life, this coming into being of your true identity and your true self through breaking free from this pain and from this loss. And part of that is this grieving process. So like, kudos to you in continuing that process even right now, and trying to grieve the loss of this little girl, and to break through pain that you've experienced time and time again, because you are now continually becoming more and more of the true woman that God's created you to be, and who really Stephanie is. Like, that's who you are becoming. Yeah. And I think that's where it was a frustrating situation for me too, because it has taken a long time. For like 12 years I've been going through this process, and I remember like time and time again saying like, oh, and I'm healed from it. Oh, I'm healed. And then something else comes up. And like, oh no, I'm good. Like I've healed from it. I'm good. And then something else comes up. And I'm just like, for the love, like, when am I going to be done with this? And again, it's just that refining process. That's just one more step, a deepening of healing, a deepening of emotion, a different maybe direction of healing than what I thought. But you have to hit rock bottom before you really start. Like, you have to hit that proverbial rock bottom before you become aware enough that you need help.
Oh, for sure.
Because we just keep covering up with these facades of me white knuckling it or survival. Like, that's just how you have to. So when you hit that rock bottom, there's that self-awareness. It's okay, I really do need help. This really isn't healthy or helpful, but that awareness piece is so key. And we've talked, there's two things for me that I would honestly say that what my growth looks like, to give a tangible, practical thing. We talk about counseling all the time, and that's definitely one of them. But then also mentorship. Mentorship for me is extremely huge, because, and this is the right person, mind you, this isn't just anybody, but the right person that you trust, that is experienced, that is older, that is more mature, that is more wise. Mentorship will lovingly point out to you where you need to grow. It encourages you as the person who you really are. They see you in your potential. But the counseling piece then comes in as the how. Yeah. That's how to implement those things. And counseling isn't a magical fix. It just gives you the tools to continue to help and to work on the things that you really need to help. You really need to work on.
Well, so last week I was meeting with Dr. Mary, and we had laid everything out, and I said, and she is holistic. So she is an approach of giving practices and routines and things like that to overcome things instead of just putting a drug on something. I prefer that as a person, where I'm just kind of like, I don't want to always put something on top of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I got to a part where I was like, I need to get out of bed and be functioning, and I need out of this like cover of darkness. So I asked her, so we laid everything out, and I said, I know that you do not prescribe drugs. And I said, but could you give me a referral for somebody who does? And she looked at me and she goes, what? Can you tell me? Like, she looked at her computer screen where she was taking all of her notes, and she was like, can you tell me how taking a pill is going to make this better? And I was like,
you're like that little kid that got told no by dad. So you run to mom and be like, Ma.
And I was like, well, I don't think you need to be so harsh about it. I was like, and she goes, this is trauma. A pill is not going to help you with trauma. Let's put some practices in first. And I was like, I respect you so much for that. Like, because really what I was saying was, hey, can we take a shortcut?
Yeah.
Like, can we just shortcut? Because you want to know what I did? The first thing that I did when, after I got married, I joined a wine membership. I did. I got 2 bottles of wine and 2 tastings every single month. That was the highlight of my month. And so not that I was numbing out, but it was one of those bright and shiny lights of my month. And so, you know what I mean? So it, like how you're talking about, like having to do the work, where she was like, nah, you're going to have to do some work. Like, we're not going to just put a Band-Aid on
Dr. Mary.
I know. So, I might doctor shop. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
She's just not doing it for me anymore.
Yeah, no, Mary, you're not doing this. Okay, so Shauna, in the moving on, how did you like get to this place where you said it's actually okay to move on with my life with new expectations, plans, goals, all of this? Like, what did that look like? Because I am also, as much as I am like, do the hard work, sit in it, do it. I'm also the one who's like, when it is done, be done and move on.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So what did that look like for you?
Moving on to me looked like I was just tired of feeling crappy, of acting crappy. Like I just was tired of being funky. And this was me this was me doing the work, but also not really knowing what true work needed to go on. So it's like, I just got tired of talking like, oh, I'm divorced. I just got tired of being like, this is who I, like talking past tense. Because like my life at the age of, how old was that? I don't know, 28, 29? Like I'm not
You're a baby.
Old.
You're a baby.
I'm not like super young, but yeah, like I'm not.
Yeah, lots of life.
So I'm just like, I have so much life to live, but the life that I did live was all over the internet. It was all over, like, my wedding pictures are online. Like, my divorce was online. My basketball career is everywhere. Like, everybody knows what's going on with whether they care or not. Mm-hmm. But for me, this past life, it was so hard for me to get over the fact that Shauna Crossley no longer exists. Like, just to own the fact that person that I owned for 5 years, like, she no longer exists. That name will never exist again. Like, that was hard for me to really own and to move away from.
Okay.
But when I got to the point where I was like, I'm just so sick and tired of talking about Shauna Zolman, the basketball player. I'm just so sick and tired of talking about this life that I once lived that truly was a dream. It was a goal, it was a dream since I was a little girl. And it was a blessing. And it was something that not a lot of people get an opportunity to experience. But it was also during the most painful years of my life. And as great as it was, as hard as it was, I was just so done with talking about it and living it and reliving it. So I'm like, I don't have a specific day, time, or hour necessarily, but there just came a point in time where I was like, this is enough. This may not have been something that I caused. It was my choice to get out of it, as funky as it was, and it was okay. But I will be in charge of the future that I'm going to develop for myself. And so once I started owning that was just like, I've had, like, you come to a point where you're just like,
yeah,
you just got to move on. And when that point, it's kind of like when people ask you, how do I know if they're the one?
Yeah.
You just say, like, you just know, right? That there's not a lot of X's and boxes to check off, like there are, but there aren't. Like, you just know. Similar to this situation, in my opinion, like, you just know when it's time to get your butt in gear and to light that fire underneath you again.
Yeah.
And so, I just got sick and tired of playing the what if games. I started developing boundaries, like we talked about, and reading up a lot of books on that, on, going to counseling, however much or however little that looked like, bringing people in, surrounding myself, really praying for and surrounding myself with the community that I do have now that has literally been life-saving and pivotal in my growth and development. That looks like no longer being a people pleaser. Like, that looks like pursuing my dreams and goals that are different, and honestly still learning what those are, and being okay with this is just a new phase in life and that's going to come. Yeah. It looks like priorities being reprioritized. So that looks like relationships over accomplishments and people over what I'm going to do to make my spot in this world, rather the people that I want to influence and have a part of my life. But honestly, it's had a lot to do with people like yourself that have marriages that aren't normal, right? It's being able to have people like you that's in my life where you get it, where you understand that this isn't just a black and white situation, that there's a lot of gray area in our lives. And when you've grown up in a conservative idealism of the church, quote unquote, when you've grown up and that's been completely rocked and shaken, and then who am I now and what I truly believe? Right. In an unorthodox marriage. Like, that's been extremely helpful, but it's also been, reading specific books that have really just wreaked havoc on my life in a great way I've always been one that's loved God with all of my heart. Yeah. I haven't always felt the love of God for me. Yeah. And the first time that I did that, it just completely shook my world. Like, it just completely changed me. And Abba's Child by Brennan Manning. I'm a huge fan of Brennan Manning. But his book called Abba's Child it's one of those that I just read every year. And I'm not a huge reader, but that single-handedly has probably been the most life-transforming thing that I've, quote unquote, done. It's just really owning that and how God is just absolutely in love with me. So all that to say, that's a overarching view of what moving on looks like for me. Yeah. Your turn.
Good stuff.
How does that look for you?
So I remember being in a conversation a couple years ago, and it was at the height of, like, work was so demanding. My children were tricky, and but I had found this, I was like, and I think I started saying, like, it's okay. This is my new normal. This really, at this moment, this is my best self, and I'm okay. And then I had a conversation with a good friend, and I found myself going back into the broken Stephanie, the wounded Stephanie, because that was the lane that she put me in. And so I needed to be that girl instead of being like, you know what? So I did get divorced and I see my kids part-time. And so, but my life is actually better now than it was trapped in this other place. But then I found myself going, well, and then I was like, you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not doing that anymore, because I really am going to own, I'm actually okay. And so, and then you have this we live in this judgy place of like, oh, well, no, I don't really care. Like, it is what it is. It's done. It's over with. And I'm actually living my best self. That's just what that looks like. But still navigating in that of like, what do I want my life to look like now? And you and I have had those conversations of, one of the things that, and again, Tom didn't come into my life and complete my life. I was already getting some things together and was in a really good, solid place myself. This other part of where I'm talking about this grieving me and all of this kind of stuff, that has always been internalized, but it didn't cripple me or leave me paralyzed. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so when Tom came in and there were some things that when we were trying to figure out, honestly, because he did travel, he wasn't here 24/7. I still got to do my life and all of those things. That actually works for me. Like how we've talked about, like there's just parts of that just does. But the other part of this is, where I fell in love with podcasts, where I had time where I wasn't hustling daily. I became a road warrior for my job. And I would travel, like I would drive down to Texas. I would drive almost to Chicago. And, my territory was huge. And so I had a lot of time. And so I spent a lot of time with listening to books, listening to podcasts. And it was almost like this whole new, it was like, one of the things that Bob Goff talks about is we don't have to do an entire 180 of our life. We can just do one little tilt. Mm-hmm. Like, and he talks about like when, and this is why it caught my attention, but when they bottle wine, they pour the wine in the bottles and then they bury them so then they can ferment and crystal, all of that, like, science stuff. But what they do is to get the sediment all right, they will go down and they'll just do one tilt. So they're not going and they're not, sloshing it around and turning it around. They're just giving it one tilt. And really without knowing that or having words for it, like I just gave my life this one little tilt of like, I saw grace way differently. Because of how much grace was extended to me. Yep. Through God's lavish love and how he extended that to me. That tilt of grace looked different. That tilt of really this really great big God. And I had lived in a very conservative, very narrow boundary. And because of the choices that I made and the decisions I made, those people in those narrow boundaries, I wasn't allowed in that group anymore. And so I was on the outside of that and I had to figure out like, am I cloaked in shame because of that? Or actually, you know what? There's a whole big group of people outside of those narrow boundaries who still love God and who still like, they're the best people I know mm-hmm. because they have a different tilt of that. And so, I can say confidently that I like me. I like this new put together person, and there's not a lot of rough edges, and grace is given and seen and received so differently. But also like there's a very strong and confident voice that comes from the battles that I fought, the battles I'm still right. fighting, but that the victories that I have found between me and God, really.
Which is really who you are anyway. Like that's just
100%.
Like you said, this new person, but that new person is really the real.
The girl who has emerged from all of that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only thing that's new is just my haircut and my lipstick. That's okay. And so, some things have stuck with me and this is really who I am.
I love it.
Man. So,
well, this talk on grief, I think has been rough, but it's been good. But it's been good. I think we did a good job of hopefully relaying some of our processes and what that looked like, and then also summing up how we moved on from it and how we're still in it, but the importance of really allowing yourself to grieve through the process, find freedom to become who you really are as a daughter of Christ, to be honest with you. So, well done, my friend. Shall we move on to our wins and losses for the week?
I am having right now what Brene Brown calls is a vulnerability hangover. Like, I was like, that's all out of me.
All right, so this may be a little bit less dramatized wins and losses because we are drained.
Ooh, yeah. So wins and losses for me is I have found a new walking trail, and the dude and I have we've loved it, and so I'm just so happy with it. And so that's, he just went to doggy daycare and had a treatment, and then he goes back next week and gets the rest of it, but he's doing much better.
Okay, good.
Yep. And where I am losing is I let's see, where am I? I would just say, I think I said this last week, so it's continuing on. But my boys are all in a tricky place. Wow. Adult children are very hard to find your mother's spot in that, to find your best place, to find grace and all of that. And, so just, I'm still like, it's just tricky. And, but Tate's amazing. So,
thanks for being awesome, Tate.
For Tate. Yeah. You're carrying the mantle right now, Tate, but that's okay. That's okay. So there's that. So what about you? Where are you winning and losing?
Winning, one of my favorite things to do at night, especially when Antoine's away, is I just kind of sit by my YouTube. I love watching YouTube clips before I go to bed. And I watch this one.
I was thinking fire pit, but then you said YouTube.
Well, I'm already in bed, so I'm ready for bed.
Okay.
If I had a fire pit, I would, but I don't.
Okay.
But this in particular was Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg telling jokes, dad jokes, and the ones that laugh the most loses. So they're trying to stay without laughing while they're telling jokes.
Oh man, I'd be bad at that.
Me too. I know. Had me rolling. So one of the jokes though I really loved, and in all with the season that it is, with the last final Avengers coming out, Endgame. I know you're not a big fan, but I think sometimes it can be fun.
Okay.
So here's the joke.
Oh, no.
Did you hear about the superhero with a lisp who always worked out?
No.
He's Thor. When they said that, I just, you know when you laugh and you have your silent laugh that's just like in your gut? By myself laying in bed, I'm just like, I'm done. I can go to sleep after that one. Oh, anyway.
Good
losing,
stuff.
this isn't going to be where I'm losing. This is where men in America are losing. Because there was a study that I just read about men's beards on Facebook. The study actually showed that that men's beard, I'm not talking stubble that's sexy. I'm talking like husky full beard.
Like Duck Dynasty beard.
Yes. It can hold more bugs and bacteria than a dog's fur coat.
Stop it right now.
How disgusting is that?
That makes me want to vomit a little bit. Ew, barf. Oh,
I
my.
know. I read this like, man, we can do better.
Yeah.
Watch that out.
Well, oh, man, that's just poor hygiene. That's terrible. No. Okay, so, Shauna, we are known for little did you know. So what is your little did I know for the week?
Okay, I'm going to go nerd on you real quick, and I'm going to read a little bit out of this book that I'm reading.
Okay.
Like I told you, I love Brennan Manning. And I've been reading this book for like years. I've just never finished it. So I'm like, on my time right now that I have a lot of it, I'm just going to finish this book. This is a thought on, as believers, like little did I know how pivotal this point would be for me in my life right now. And it just says this: Christians ought to be celebrating constantly. We ought to be preoccupied with parties, banquets, feasts, and merriment. We ought to give ourselves over to veritable orgies of joy because we have been liberated from the fear of life and the fear of death. We ought to attract people to the church quite literally by the fun there is in being a Christian. And I'm thinking about how different, honestly, we live, unfortunately. But the thought that we should be so filled with joy because he literally has conquered sin, fear, death, all the above.
Yeah.
And the point in my life where I'm literally waiting on pins and needles to hear reports from Antoine and how he's doing or not doing in the academy and what's our life going to look like depending on what he says. Like, there's a part where I am completely out of control of this.
Right.
But hearing and reading that is that I will not let anything else steal my joy because that's literally saying God's too small. And God is not too small and he's in control. And even regardless of what news we hear or we don't hear, he's still big enough and he's in control and he's going to provide and he's going to bring it to fruition and he's still going so I'm going to live a joyous life.
Woo.
I'm going to have fun. I'm going to party for Jesus because why not?
It's finished. That's right. You should. Absolutely. I love it. I would just want to be a part of those parties.
Okay. Well, coming up, you will be.
Please invite me. Okay, perfect. Okay. So my little did I know is, it's so simple, but it was amazing. So, Thomas is a weekend home husband. Yes. I mean, he's a husband all the time, but he is a weekend at home husband. And this weekend was our home weekend, and Tatum was at her dad's. And so, we had a great time Friday night. Like, his grandpeople, I don't know if I told you, his grandpeople were in town. And so we had a sleepover with the two big kids and just so fun. But then, they had already planned. So we had the whole day to ourselves and we were like, you know what, we should let's go to happy hour. We can go to a really yummy dinner, all this kind of stuff. And then we were like, you know what we could do is be responsible homeowners. And how about we do yard work? And
your favorite.
we did yard work. We got plants and planted and mowed the yard. And we just did things around the house that typically we don't do. We either pay somebody to do it or we wait around and it doesn't, and plus when we moved in here, we got married and then it was winter, but we had the best day. So little did I know a yard work day with Thomas Francis Parks was going to be that much fun. It was great. It was a really great time.
You know that Geico commercial where they're talking about like the new couple moves into town and they're becoming their parents. Everybody else is like, who does your yard? And he's like, oh, we just pay somebody. And everybody looks at him with such disdain. But the funny one is the two women are talking and she goes, oh, you look at my new tattoo. She goes, oh, nice. Don't you work?
I know. We did the heavy lifting today. So, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for just being a part of what we are super excited about doing. So we hope that we have been a great companion on your drive to work, your commute, your trip on the treadmill, whatever that needs to look like. We just hope that you enjoyed your time.
Trip on the treadmill. That'd be dangerous.
No, don't trip. Your run, right? Don't trip on the treadmill. That's bad. But we just thank you so much. So I am Stephanie Parks. You can find me at Steph K. Parks on Instagram and Stephanie Parks on Facebook.
I am Shauna Zolman-Mahaley, and you can find me there on Facebook and on Instagram as well.
All right. Well, we look forward to a conversation next week, and I really am going to tell you 85% chance of you're going to laugh a whole lot more than we did this week.
Let's bump that on up to 95. Okay. I'm pretty sure you're going to laugh a lot more next week.
You've got a solid A going into next week. We're going to laugh. Yeah. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.